I come to you with outstretched hands, gracefully. From my mouth, I welcome you. From my heart, I reach out to the earth. I reach out to the Creator. From the east to the west, north to south, all are welcome. There are no splinters for you to walk on. When I was hungry, you gave me food to eat. When I was tired, you gave me a place to rest. From the bottom of my heart.
Peace, everyone. I'm just doing a sound check. Can everyone hear me properly in YouTube land and in Clubhouse land? And if you're on Facebook, let me know if you can hear me in Facebook land. Just put like a thumbs up or one in the chat or something. I'll just take a look, keep a lookout for them. Peace, everyone. I'm going to open up the space. Okay, all present. Very good. Give thanks. So I'm going to open up the space. Give thanks to the Most High. This is the top of another 7, a cycle of 7. So we know that this next 6 days, today included, we have another opportunity to dominate and do what we do, making sure that we're moving in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Also give thanks to Chief Yuya for allowing this space, as always allowing us to deliberate, right or wrong, but there will be correction in the end, and we will leave affirmed. So give thanks, everyone. So now I'm going to turn my attention to the chat. Give thanks, all of you, for being here. Shalom, Achoti Maria, Sovereign Eats, top tier speakers, Imanaya, Master Menulek in YouTube land, as well as on Clubhouse. Ima Yakira Eden, Avaras Kush, also known as MGC Randy on YouTube, and in Clubhouse land, Peace Aki Darian. I think that's everybody, and I'm guessing you guys can hear me because I can also see the thing flashing as I speak. So I think everything is heard, and I will share the join link in the chat, and also, as always, feel free to come up on stage on Clubhouse if you have something that you want to share. Welcome, Aki Mayuba. Peace, and welcome on Clubhouse, in Clubhouse land. No sound on Clubhouse. Okay. I don't know. All right. What about now? Is there sound on Clubhouse? I don't know. I see the thing blinking as if it's picking up my talking. I don't know. Peace, Cruz. Just let me know. I'll keep looking out on Clubhouse to see if you can hear me or not. I'm unmuted. And if so, like what I'll do is I'll bring you up on stage, Master Media, like so that I can like come out and come back in. Because if I come out, it's gonna stop the room. Okay. I'm looking. Peace, Aki Isaiah. Peace, 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 everyone. Still no sound? I'm just waiting for the answer on Clubhouse. No? This is nerve-wracking. It's making me break into a sweat. Okay. Hopefully y'all can't see it. So I'm going to get started. All right. So I don't see anything on Clubhouse. This is what I'm going to do. Okay, so like I'm gonna invite you to speak and bring you up on stage so that we can figure out the sound in this room. I thought I was doing so well with Clubhouse. It started to act right. And now, I don't know if you see the invite or not. Peace, Akizak. All right. Well, I'm going to get started. You're muted. Yeah, it's saying I'm muted, but I'm seeing it. The sound move. Okay, hold on. What about now? It's got the blinky thing as if it's catching my voice. I don't know. I don't know. Clubhouse is acting up. I'm getting errors. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I think I see what the issue may have been. I'm not sure. I'm saying I'm not online, but I am. It says internet is offline. Let's see. I'm gonna try this. Am I still muted on Clubhouse? I'm looking at the YouTube chat. Let me know. Well, we might just have to have our whole build on YouTube and Facebook because Clubhouse is not working. Well, at least for me, it's not. Okay. I'm going to do that. All right, so I'm going to keep trying to Clubhouse, but in the meantime, I'm going to start because this is insane. All right, so the build today is solid rock or sinking sand. So I'm actually going to start with a story time. And a story time has to do with something that I actually like to do a lot, which is, well, not a lot. I like to do it, but I haven't had the opportunity to do it a lot. So let me correct that statement. It is glass blowing, but specifically lamp work because I bead. And so when you're actually making glass beads, it's called lamp work. And when you're blowing like, and that's just for like small things. And when you're blowing like larger pieces or like glass for windows, like it's a whole different process. Like usually for like flat paned glass, which is windows, or you know, for like things that we use like our phones and stuff, it's more of like a torching process. But if it's things that we're using, like, you know, vases, cups, it's a blowing process. Like they put it in like a hot oven that's sometimes, depending on what you're making, sometimes heated in excess of like 3,500 degrees. So like things are done in a hot shop. It's a whole process. It's a process. And okay. All right, so we're gonna have to redo the event on Clubhouse. So for those of you who would like to join on Clubhouse, I'm gonna redo it, and we'll come in a little bit later. But in the meantime, while I do this, I'm gonna multitask, try to, and like finish the story. So when I was watching this program, because I like to go glass, and I like to watch like how others make and create different like pieces of artwork that are glass. And as I'm watching this program, one of the commentators or the hosts or whatever, they say, there's a shortage of sand. And immediately I was like, what? Like, shortage of sand? And apparently, like, this has been a story for a while, and I was like late catching on that the world is having a sand shortage. And so I started looking and like, well, why? And then I learned like sand is actually a commodity, and it's a scarce commodity because they're running out of places to get it. So there's this idea like, there won't actually be like this total global depletion, because there are some places that you can't just you're not able to use the sand in a certain way. So there'll always be sand, but the sand that is used most frequently is depleting. So immediately I'm like, oh, well, Chief did this whole class with the room about commodities. And I'm like, is it a hard commodity? Is it a soft commodity? But it's definitely a commodity. And I'm like, oh, well, what are the investments? And I didn't even get that far. I didn't even get that far because so much stuff started coming up about sand and like the things that are wrong and what's happening, that I was just like, okay, well, let's like read a little bit more into this. So the question was like, well, if there's a depletion of sand, are they able to like, what about like, recreating sand from things that are already done? Like recycle. Can you use recycled sand? Can you break glass and, destroy concrete? And the answer is yes. They are, there is manufactured sand, and there are processes and people who do that. And there is a market for manufactured sand. The other interesting thing that I found out is the most extracted natural resource after air and water. The entire globe uses over 50 billion, I sound like I said million, 50 billion metric tons of sand annually, because it's a key ingredient in concrete and glass production. So then it was like, well, what is sand? And for those of you who want to join, I'm going to put the link in soon. So what is it? It's a mixture of small grains of rock and like granular materials. It's also made by erosion or broken pebbles and weathering of rock. So like sand basically is like the sediment coming from rock. I see a from Akizat. What and well, I don't know. Maybe y'all know this already, but I'm just sharing y'all with what I learned. I don't know. Let me know if y'all were already hip on this, and then I'll like speed up the story. And I'll keep going until I see like what the consensus is. And in the meantime, we'll keep trying to get the room up on Clubhouse. So what is it? Like I said, it's a mixture of small grains of rock. It's like sediment. It's rock sediment. Oh, you didn't know this? Okay, I'm sharing, what I learned, and y'all can like go further and look this up. Also, typically, what's in sand, it's like mainly made of like silicone or silicate materials. And what's a silicate material? Like quartz. So like quartz is rock. It's actually the most dominant material in sand, and it has like highly resistant properties to weather, right? But there's different kinds of grains of sand. There's fine. It's kind of categorized into different sizes: fine, like super fine, very fine. Then like there's your medium grains and coarses of sand, and then there's coarse sand, right? And even with all of this, like there's different types. There's like masonry sand. There's and even before you get to that, let me back up. You have black sand, white sand, gray and tan sand, pink sand, I forgot what it's called, like bio something sand, because it's made up of a lot of like crushed bone and skeletons. Like black sand is made up of like volcanic ash and material and things like that. A lot of beach sand would be like a mixture of the rock and the sediment, but also pieces of coral reef will wash up, and things are like worn and weathered over time because of the wind and the water, right? So come to find out, it is the most common mineral or material. Mineral, quartz is the most common mineral in there, and sand is like, in abundance in the globe. So it's just like, well, how is it running out? Why is there a shortage? And it would be interesting to know. And I'll wait. And while I wait, like I'll, get Clubhouse back up. Why do you think there would be a shortage of sand? And I'll wait in the chat for some of your answers. Yeah, the voice is not ready for Jeopardy. I'm waiting in the chat. Peace, South Hava. Peace, Chief. Peace, alive. Welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm looking. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the description. Okay. All right. So we are back on Clubhouse. So those of you who are in Clubhouse, if you see Akidari and I see you in the room already, you could just put in the chat if you can hear me. We're back on Clubhouse. So Akizak says people think that stuff will never run out and keep mixing the cement. You're right. You're right there. You're right there. So now that we're back on Clubhouse, I'm going to keep it moving. So the question was, why do you think there's a shortage of sand? And all of this is relevant to the build and while we're talking today. All of it is relevant. And I actually kind of gave away some of the answer, but since it's taking y'all a while, and Akizak actually gave a piece of the answer. So I'm gonna keep going because y'all taking too long. So it's actually urbanization. Sand is the main ingredient for building materials, and particularly concrete. But there's also pieces that it's also used in other things like microchips, the Gorilla Glass for these things, our phones and whatnot. So all of these items, a lot of the items that we use, makeup, we learned about this before, like makeup uses sand, a lot of different things, plastics. Sand is a key ingredient of a lot of things that are produced or manufactured, right? It's used as the raw material to make something fake. I guess that's a good, interesting way of putting it, right? So, like I said, there's fine sand. It's usually used in like plastering works, which would be why you could probably put somebody's head through the wall because it's like really, really fine and just kind of slip through your fingers. Moderately coarse sand, and this type of sand is usually used for like mortar or like masonry works. And then, as I said, there's coarse sand. This is the best sand to use for construction materials. It's suited for concrete, and mainly because it's got jagged edges, right? So if we back up a little bit, it's like, well, how are we going to run out of sand? There's like desert sand and da-da-da-da-da. Like, aren't they using all of that? Well, the truth is, like, desert sand does not necessarily make for the best sand to use in buildings. And it's because it becomes weather worn specifically because of the wind. So in the desert, there's like sandstorms, and the wind like picks up and whips around the sand, making them very small, making them very smooth, the grains very smooth. So when they are mixed with other aggregate materials to make something like concrete or mortar, it doesn't bond together the way that it needs to bond in order to make it solid so that it becomes something that is long lasting. So the majority of sand that we end up using comes from like riverbeds, shorelines, like beach sand. A lot of sand is mined from like the bottom, like the ocean floor, which is like, well, doesn't the water do the same thing? I think yes, but this is why, a lot of it comes from like the shore instead of like under the water. And also again, like the riverbeds, because the sand is coarse. Like this is where you find the coarsest sand, because again, the edges are more jagged and angular. And so they make better to bond together and like fit. I'm just gonna go to Clubhouse to make sure that people can hear. Sound is coming in clear now. Very good. Yeah, very good. Give thanks. Give thanks. And I think I was ignoring. I think I see a hand up, so I'm gonna do that. Okay. Okay. The peace, unity, mandala. He says, and how does the taking of sand affect natural habitats for animals? It does not do very well. It does. It affects a lot of different environments. It disrupts the mining and things of sand in a lot of places. It does disrupt the ecosystem. But I'm not going to get too deep into that because I didn't go too deep into that part. But to give you the answer, it does have a negative or adverse effect on the ecosystems surrounding the areas where they mine. So, like I said, the best sand suited for construction and building materials when we think of urbanization is coarse sand. And when we think of urbanization, it's how we live, right? So when we have cities and buildings, like what's the first thing that pops to your head when it comes to like visuals? It's the tall high rises, right? Or even the skyscrapers. Yeah, we have low rises, mid rises, all of that. But when you think of a city skyline, like what you see is the outline and the shape of all these really, really massive tall buildings. And they require the highest quality of sand to use and mix their concrete. So like, for example, like even, I don't know, Burj Khalifa, I think it is, but a lot of the buildings in the UAE, they imported sand all the way from Australia to get the highest quality, because where are these places located? They're like smack dab in the middle of desert. So there's like, so you would think like the best thing to do is to use the sand, that surrounds you where you're from. But in order to get the highest quality sand to make these buildings that will be stable, where the foundation is more stable, the materials are more stable, they have to import the sand all the way from across the world. So how might the quality of buildings be impacted by a sand shortage? Well, like I said, the sand found in deserts is unsuitable. Taller buildings import sand. In countries that have higher income, right, or developed nations or first world, first whatever you want to call it, they're going to have the money for better quality buildings. However, if there's a sand shortage, it means that there'll be some instances and occasions where people will cut corners, right? Especially if there's a shortage, what does it mean? That means the raw material, the price of the raw material goes up and up and up, and it becomes almost unaffordable. So people will skimp corners, buy cheaper quality sand, and then what do we have? Buildings that might collapse. Now, the truth is, it's not always the fault of the sand. Like at the end of the day, sand is volatile because it's granular, right? So it's not going to be something that holds up. Even in scripture, we say, like, we learn about, the man who builds his house on sand, and sand is very foolish. But one thing that I learned about the sand is like, it's not always the raw material that does it. Sometimes it's the end product, which would be the concrete. No matter what happens, the concrete is always going to erode. And that comes from like external factors, well, internal and external factors. Based on the sand, like if there's too much salt in the sand, based on where you got the sand from, if there's too much, like a lot of sea sand has chloride in it, and that actually wears away at the iron and things. So when when they're mixing the concrete with the beams and whatnot, it actually wears away. And then from the outside, it's weather, wind, rain, also like chemicals. So when we think about a city like LA that has smog, what's in the wind? What's in the rain when it's hitting the side of these buildings? Like, what is it doing over time? It's slowly eroding the concrete, right? And then it's going to bring it down to like what it's actually made of, which is sand. So what did I realize? So two things. Before I get to that, I want to go to the chat. Peace, Alva Cruz. He says aggregate mining is a large industry. The Bahamas also. Yes. Limestone grades are separate for block making and mixed at times with products of a higher grade from Cuba. Interesting. What do they make them for the buildings or for something else? Like maybe just like smaller projects? Are they used for larger building projects like office buildings or homes, or just like I don't know, like maybe a what do you call like an atrium at a park, where like something that stays flat or something. So that would be interesting to know. So yes, I'm gonna keep going. I'll wait for your answer and I'm gonna keep going. So what did I realize after looking this up? A few things crossed my mind. Like, so number one, I didn't even get to the first, like, as I was researching all this, the whole point was like, oh, I wonder if this is like a good investment. And I never even made it. But as I was learning things, I was like, about the sand and the part that bonds together, the highest quality sand is what has to be used. And I guess, that's the truth for anything. The better the source material, the better the product. So the higher quality the sand, the better the building. And I thought, in scripture where it talks about like the children of Israel will be like grains of sand, like that's how numerous we'll be. We have to be the best quality sand. We'll be like grains of sand, but we have to be the best quality sands, the highest aggregate that bonds together the best in order to build the best and strongest structure. So that was one piece that I got to, like, so it's more along the lines of harmony and how we bond together. Like, yes, it's like these sharp edges. It kind of looks like this. I think this came from like somewhere outside my house, and this is more like a quartz rock. And you see how like jagged it is, and like, but like if it's ground down and like used for sand, it could be part of something that's the best of quality, right? So that was one thing that I came up with. And as usual, like, if you have anything to share, again, we're back on Clubhouse. So for those of you who do like to comment more on Clubhouse, we are back there. Yeah, we are back on Clubhouse. So, feel free to comment. And I'm trying to be fair to Clubhouse because I do have a tendency to like ignore it and just pay attention to the chat. So welcome to the stage, Chief. Just unmute if you have something, and I will pause. And if not, I'll keep going. Peace out, Zach. So yeah. So that was one part, right? So that was a piece of what I learned about sand and how I, was able to connect it to how we move as I knew, like be the best quality sand. We are children of Israel, be the best quality so that we can build the best structures. Abba Cruz says we sell aggregates to a large group out of VA, Virginia, I guess, for blocks that they make and cement products. The cement grade mixed with the Cuban products are usually for blacks or blocks. Blacks used in construction in the Bahamas. Oh wait, okay. So the aggregate, which would be, I guess, the higher quality, comes to the States. That's how I'm reading this. And then the cement grade, which I think is the lower grade sand, is used for the Caribbean, and I'll get into that. And he goes on to say the main reason that the finished product is not sold in the U.S. is both the embargo again. Okay. So I had that totally wrong. Right. So you use it with a Cuban product, and so the embargo is still in place. I gotcha. Give thanks for that. Give thanks. Yeah. Moving along. So like, yeah, so on one part, we have to be that higher grade quality. And on the second part, it was like, okay, well, sand is volatile, right? At the end, like, yeah, like the finished product is volatile too. Like at the end of the day, it's always gonna erode. Concrete's always gonna erode. But scripture, Matthew 7:24-27, gives us like a whole explanation about, where we should, what materials and what we should use to build our homes. Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken them unto a wise man which built his house upon rock. So, we have to be diligent and obedient so that we can be like that wise man that built his house upon rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon rock. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. So after like reading that and reading about sand, it took me to the on the way about like where we should build our houses. So yeah, like if we're gonna be like grains of sand, be that strongest sand, but also know there's a deeper part to it. We should be in high places anyway. Our home should be in the mountainous regions. And what's in the mountains? Rock. Mount Zion, and this is from the Anuwe. Mount Zion not only holds the allegory to our revered abode of refuge, but also tells us what our destined dwellings should be. We live in elevated mountainous places. It is best to build homes on the hardened grounds as we want a worthy place to house the articles precious to us. Our homes are the representation of our cultivated minds and should have foundations that are deeply planned, just as our minds must be structured and equipped to its lowermost distances. So immediately I was like, that's rooted. So if we have, so overall, like going deeper into the whole sand things, but if your foundation has like a basis of sand, how rooted can it really be? It's not solid. It's almost like the song lyrics, like the earth all around me is sinking sand, right? I see the chat moving. Let me go to the chat real quick. Our crew says, okay, embargo against Cuban products and quality control for American building construction. Got it. And interesting on your point about the quality of sand, because even the steel that you use must be of a complement to the grade of quality used. That's interesting. I didn't even get to that part. Give thanks for that share. That's very interesting. So yeah, so going back to like, and it was so interesting how like this one quote on this show took me down this whole road of looking at sand and how it's used in buildings and how that can also be interpreted to how we should move. Because not only is the foundation of a home symbolic, as we read many times in the way, symbolic of, not only is it representative of the actual stability of the house physically, but mentally it is a representation of our mind. So that goes into like how we think, how we move, how we display the things that we do, the way we do things. It goes into our culture, how we think about our culture, and then how we display our culture. So it's like the right thinking, right? And that all is based on the foundation. So then it's like, okay, well, are we founded, and thinking like even personally, am I founded in sand or am I founded in something much stronger? And then how do I get there? Think about like even where we live now. In most cities, like they grow vertically. Everything is about like how the building can get the highest, and everybody wants to live in the highest building. That was even me at one point. I was like, I want to live on the top floor and be able to see like at least 2 bodies of water and da da da. What building is that? What building is that? Where is that? I mean, maybe it exists somewhere, but I don't know. I have no clue like how I was gonna get there. But those are the things that I was saying. And it's like, but you're living in a tube basically of concrete and glass, all of which is based on sand. And sand is not going to be something that can hold you up in the long run, right? Like, yeah, there's better grades of it, which may last longer, but it's not going to hold you up in the long run. And even to a deeper point, it was when corners are cut and you have places that maybe can't afford the best grade of sand, or as the sand goes, diminishes, the useful sand diminishes, what happens? We have situations like, like what's happening currently in the world and what has happened in recent times, the earthquake in Haiti. A lot of those, the cement and the concrete was used with sand that was from the area. A lot of that sand is water-worn and weather-worn sand. So it does have more of the smoother particles. It's not the coarse. It's not the highest grade. So when you have something that literally rocks the ground, that really is more stable, everything collapses. Some of that may have been what happened in recently in Syria. There's over like 100 arrest warrants for a lot of the builders who did that, and of course we know like there's always something behind the scenes like politics or whatever where people are trying to like pass blame and shift blame. Because even when I saw the news report, which was before I started looking into the sand, I was like, what they got to do with it? This was a natural disaster. But many places do have building regulations, and they build according to what their environment is like. So like in California, they do have, building codes that where they build to make sure that things are sturdy enough for, a certain level of earthquake. Earthquakes are not new to Turkey. They've had several in the last few years. So they've actually been getting stronger. So the question could arise, like, did you cut corners? Did you use the proper materials? And also, like, well, at the end of the day, it was just made of sand. I can't even say concrete and glass because, like I said, at the end of the day, everything is sand. It was just made of sand. So, like, how sturdy, or how would it have been built up? So then it goes, and there's another example. I think Miami. Similar thing happened in Miami. The condominium complex that just collapsed, and it started in the ground, which is the foundation. So the foundation was literally rocked, and then the building just started to cave in, like, rippled. Started on like the ground floor of parking, and then it rippled to like the pool, and then eventually one of the towers just like fell down. And I think like almost 100 people lost their lives in that accident. So it's like, well, what happened? And I did go in to look to see what happened, but they're still trying to figure it out, what happened. They have like a whole technology institute, like looking it up. They actually just got a $22 million grant from the government to look it up. Like, really? Oh, it's actually the NIST, National Institute of, I think, Structural Technology. I can't remember what it was called, but they got 22 million in supplemental funding from Congress to support this investigation. Honestly, this is just the way money moves, how they move it around. Because at the end of the day, it's probably not that difficult to figure out how. Because number one, we know it was sand, and then number two, concrete erodes, and if there aren't proper like maintenance, which costs money, maintenance and structural upkeep and things that have to be done, eventually it's going to fall, maybe sooner than predicted. So that's what I learned about sand. And so, like I said, it kind of went into this place about, the grade of sand that we're going to be. Like, you should be the kind that's high quality that bonds together. But even deeper, it should be where we are moving on those high places and not just resting in sand, but building on rock, right? So all those aggregate pieces should be, kind of going back to the source, because sand is actually sediment. It's like offshoots and different pebbles and things that actually do come from rock, whether it be from earthquakes or weather-worn lightning strikes, whatever you can think of. It actually is a piece of their pieces, like small pieces of rock. So it's kind of like going back to the source onto those high places, and that's how we should move for how we live. So just as like a house has to be on stable ground with a foundation that runs deep, our minds have to be rooted with right thinking as well. There was a whole other way that I kind of, thought about this, with like even how, we see like what's happening with these buildings and what's happening. And it's like, well, how many of us actually know who built our homes, right? So it goes even deeper. Like, do you know who built your most of us, the answer is no. Unless you are living in a house that you built from the ground up, which I know Chief does have his own homes that he built with his own hands or supervised the building. How many of us have homes that we built with our own hands, or homes that were built by our Anu brothers and sisters? If our dwellings can be built by the hands of our Anu brothers and sisters, this is a more sacred thing. But most of us are not living in those spaces. So then it's like, can we be sure that corners weren't cut? How do we know what grade of sand was used when it comes to the materials, the glass, the concrete, the bricks, all the masonry, the plaster in the wall? Like, how do we know if it was the highest grade used or the appropriate grade used for whatever materials went into building the home? We don't. That's why we have to move to these places, right? I see the chat moving. Naya says, reminds me of the sinkholes in Baltimore that kept developing and swallowing cars and homes. Yeah, people will wake up and then, where's my car? Where's my car? Who stole my car? No. The earth just swallowed it up. I think that said one would have to climb in order to get to the best place. Many want to look for the escalator or the elevator instead of using the stairs. Yeah, It is work. Like we have spoken about a bottomless chain many, many times. And it's not just something that's gonna, oh, here it is. It's like literally touching the ground. What are those things like when they rescue people from rooftops and they have like a ladder and then you just kind of put your foot on the ladder and you hold on and it just lifts you up. No, you got to work for it. So what I'm saying here is not like, oh, we're just going to move, we're going to go to these high places. Like, yes, that's where we're supposed to be, but it's not going to be like airlifted there. That's the word. We're not airlifted to these places. We have to work for it. And how do we work for it? And it's pouring out and into one another, pouring out to the communities around us. And not in a way it says we have to be a benefit to those around us. So it's not just something by, oh, poof, we're going to be in these high places. No, you have to earn it. You have to earn it. Peace, Aki El Kara, up and away. Right, this ain't up. We don't got millions of balloons and a house. And then I think of up, I'm like, he must have not had a foundation. Or no, didn't some of that house come up with the earth underneath it? Well, whatever. We don't have up balloons. We don't have up balloons here. Maybe somebody will make them. I don't know. But we don't have up balloons where we can do that. You have to work. So like moving into the piece about like, do we know like who has built our homes? Like, that physical part is really important. Like who's building it? For years, like if I go back to the example about Turkey, like, people were warning them about the new buildings that they were unsafe due to like corruption in the government, people getting paid off. And this happens in many, many, many countries, whether it's high income or not. People cut corners and try to find the cheapest way and the quickest way to do things all the time. Like the quickest way to rise to the top. We're going to build this building like this, even though they know they shouldn't have. And so then what happens is when these buildings collapse, everybody's looking around, we're like, well, who are we going to blame for it? Like, whose fault is it? And it's like, well, this is what you put your energy into. This is what you poured into. You poured into the lowest quality thing. So how could you think that anything could sustain you? How could you think that it could get you to the top, or even better yet, sustain you at the top? Naya says, using stairs means you have to build your body in order to be able to climb. It's easier to push the button on the elevator. It is. And and some people don't even push the button on the elevator. On some days, the elevator just goes to every floor and they get to, wherever it is they need to be. Think about that. Aki Lo says, yeah, those buildings look nice, but the foundations ain't solid. They're not. Aki's access also makes me think of the comment she's made about Fight Club. The things you own end up owning you. It's hard for those to move because of the things they want to hold on to. Yeah, and you'll stay in your foundation that actually is largely corrupt, right? Because the right materials weren't used, so it's corrupted from the beginning. No, a Wonka Vader. No Wonka Vader neither. What's a Wonka Vader? I don't know. Yes. Okay. So like I was saying, like the physical, it's important to know who's building your building, because it's like, well, what's going into that? Who's pouring into you? Because there's a whole mental piece to that. Who's pouring into you, and what's the programming that we're receiving? So then, when you're thinking about that foundation, what's being laced within there? When that concrete is being mixed, when we see those trucks go by with the big thing, the big twirly thing, I think there's a cement truck. What's actually being mixed in there? And then when they actually go and lay the concrete, right, for the foundation, what was actually laced in there? Do we know? The answer is no. It's there. It's there, and we put our trust in things that we don't really know about. But if we are moving with community where we do know we're sharing the same thinking, we're sharing the same values, we're sharing the same culture, the same morals, then we'll know what's in that I'm like mixing my hands. I don't know if y'all can see it. We'll know what's in that concrete. We'll know what's in the foundation that we're sitting on, that we're resting the house on. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate. Akila says, Aki El Karar, I'm sorry, aka Lotus Scholar, says Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. He had a Wonka Vader that just didn't go up and down. It also flew. Right. Right. We don't have Wonka Vaders here. No, you gotta climb. You got to climb up to that space, right? Akizak says the foundation that I would equate to empty calories that folks consume. Eat a whole, excuse me, eat a whole meal and feel hungry 30 minutes later, not wanting to consume anything of nutritional value, no foundation. It's like air. Abu Cruz, oh, I'm sorry, Akizek said, I knew what he was talking about. Oh, right. I'm sorry. I didn't fully watch Willy Wonka. Did that kick me out of the movie club? I don't think I ever really watched it in its entirety. Sorry. Abu Cruz says sinkholes are similar to the side of a building falling or cracks in your walls. This proved the importance of preparation to ensure the product of a certain quality to prevent moisture from getting into areas that will erode over time. Yeah, and like I said, like it's always going to erode, but when you use better quality materials, it's you kind of buying yourself time, but that's all it really is. You're buying yourself time. So that's why it's like it's even deeper than that. Like no matter what, these buildings of sand will eventually disintegrate and or fall. Abu Cruz says this also indicates the importance of maintenance. So it's like the example that you made, Akizak, about like the gym. It's like you have to keep it going. You have to maintain it. Like, and I know I brought up like, oh, it's muscle memory. Yeah, but like she like blew that out of the water. It's like, yeah, but you also have fat memory too. And like what the body's gonna remember like is what it was doing the longest, right? So it's like if you're not maintaining it, you're leaving that sedentary piece out longer. So just like a foundation of a building, if it's not being maintained and those cracks are being allowed to spider web and go deeper into, because sometimes they're so many feet thick, so deeper into or higher up into the ground, above ground levels, you're eventually going to have a disaster on your hands because you're not maintaining what's supposed to be there. So maintaining in another sense could also be like reading the Anu Way daily, maintaining that mental, reading scripture daily, maintaining that mental, communing and deliberating with your Aelites, pouring into without always expecting something in return, giving of yourself. That's also maintaining. That's maintenance. Abu says, once a structure is erected or road made, one must maintain the structure. Add something, take something away. Think about how many, like I'm sure a lot of you drive, even our roads, sand. Sand is a major component in almost everything in the built world, right? So imagine think about how many roads you've driven down, like if you're on a road trip or a highway and you're like, dang, like when was the last time they did this road? It's nothing but cracks. Or you could see the grooves that the truck has made, and it's almost like you're riding, like it's like you're just waiting for the middle of the road to like bump up your car because the wheels are kind of stuck in the grooves made by these, the big 18 wheelers that travel this road all the time, right? And so it's like if that road is not being maintained, it causes issues for other things. I remember once I was driving and I was trying to get off and exit. There was a hole. I don't even know if you could call it a pothole. It was one of those holes that was like jagged to the point where it's like, oh my goodness, is this gonna rip the tire? It wasn't just like like a concave thing. It was almost rhombus in shape, but like jagged, and then you could see like the broken pieces. I'm like, I don't know what fell into this road, but it needed to be fixed. And it was like, think about the damage that those things cause because you're not maintaining or you're not keeping up what you're supposed to be keeping up. Akizak says, and how many folks take things for granted, just looking at the sand and thinking that it can't run out. Okay, that part. Thinking that it can't run out, just like the ark, and thinking there can't be a flood. It will be like this forever, right? It's like party. What? We gonna party, and then it's like we sorry, save us. Yeah, there's always movement. Like, oh, it'll be all right. This will be all right. And apparently, like, this is like 2023. And as I was reading some of this stuff, a lot of these articles and podcasts and videos that I was reading and listening to do like some of the research and get some of the information, they've been out since like 2017, maybe even earlier. So this is not a new thing. It's to the point, like the deep thing about the sand running out is to the point where there's almost like I guess like a black market thing, for it. Like there was this I was listening to like one of the people who's supposed to be like an expert engineer in this area, and he was telling a story about a village in India that's like a coastal village. Like they have sand, and like this gang came in and literally like beat up the people and like literally took over the area and started just exporting the sand to I think it was actually to a developer. So how many of these developers actually have like these backdoor accesses to sand? Like, oh, I don't want to go and pay for it on the market. So I'm gonna have these I have these and this happens all the time with a lot of things, but I'm gonna have these backdoor opportunities or these black market processes that I go through to get the sand. And meanwhile, you have like, and it'll be like a building like where it's like, and it's so green. And everything is environmentally friendly, and all these environmentally conscious people are living in it, not realizing that it could have been a whole village that was like decimated, so you can have the sand to live in this new environmentally conscious building. I was like, this is sick. It's so sick. Aki Lo says, how beachfront property is like sought after land. Historically, beachfront property was for the poor. Yup. And undesirable. Now let's build on sand and sell it for a premium like Boardwalk and Monopoly. Ain't that the truth? So once I have another story. I actually, when I lived in Boston, I lived in this community. It was called, we won't even talk about the name. I lived in a specific community. It was like a gated community. And I found it through like roommate board that the school had, whatever. And I found out later that I actually was, I guess, what you would consider a gentrifier, because only a few years, because the development was actually fairly new. And that actually was what drew me to it, because I was like, oh, it's new and da-da-da-da. And I found out that only a few years later, it actually was the projects. And we kind of talked about this in the Womb Bill yesterday about projects, and what that means, like project to throw forward. Throwing forward, whatever the insidious plan is for these people so that it'll affect them for generations to come. So this was a specific project in a particular area in Boston that they had literally just kind of taken, similar to what they've been doing in New York City, giving the residents vouchers and sending them elsewhere. And then they stopped taking like the Section 8. And then it shows you like how, if you're going to be dependent on government, how they can just stop the teat. They can just, plug up the teat at any point. And so they stopped taking Section 8. They gave people vouchers to move elsewhere. And then anybody else that stayed, what they did was like kind of cordon them off into this other section of the whole complex. And of course, it's no longer called Project, and it got a whole new name. And I found that out, and I was like, this is kind of sick. And even when I was living there, the rent was one thing at this point, because it was actually a beachfront property. There was it's a small beach in Boston, and those apartments now are like $3,000 and $4,000. It's like insane. But what was really insane was like how they cordoned off the people that used to live there, and then charged exorbitant amount of money for rent. Even then, because that was crazy to me, like as a student, a crazy amount of money for rent for property that was built on sand. And of course, like at that time, I'm like, this is awesome. I could just like walk out the house to the beach and da-da-da-da-da. It's built on sand. It's volatile. Anything can happen. The earth could open up and swallow up, unless there is, which is actually true for the East Coast. It's a layer of bedrock. It's like rock from a certain point on the East Coast down to in the north down to the south, parts of the south. But even that's not even safe, because for those of you who do live in the Northeast or the Eastern Seaboard, several years ago, there was an earthquake that we could all very much feel. So nothing is, permanent at that, when it comes to that. I'm going to go to the chat because it's kind of active. And I could say I've seen holes like that. Yeah, that swallow up building. Albert Cruz says, there's another side also. Our island is getting hammered by floods in specific areas during hurricanes, now due to the amount of sand being moved from the Earth's foundations. Yes, when they remove shore sands, it actually erodes the shoreline, and it creates problems for barriers when it comes to where the actual living and activity starts in a city that is close to the shoreline. And so then where do you have like whole street? And we've seen even when um we've seen, how many times have you seen like images of houses literally being washed away? Like that doesn't just happen on purpose. It's constant like erosion of the shoreline, whether natural or man-made. And there's a lot of man-made uh problems when it comes to shoreline erosion because of the harvesting of sand. Akizak said that's all because of global warming. Aqua Cruise. Some of it. Can't forget the cooling. I don't know about the cooling. I don't know. I know they don't call it that. They call it climate change. I don't know. I guess that's it. To include the warming and the cooling. Oh, and I just realized I did not put the link. Let me see. There's comments on Clubhouse. Welcome, Aki Jason. Welcome. Greetings. Oh, you're saying something spunky with the sound. Still? Oh no, man. Aki Jason says, yeah, it's cutting in and out. Might switch to the YouTube feed. All right. I don't know. Peace. Sherla, welcome to the room. I think sometimes if usually people speak on stage, the sound kind of corrects itself, but I'll keep going. And willfully, YouTube will sort itself. I'm sorry, Clubhouse will sort itself out. Akilo says, like in Louisiana, the natural barrier of the Gulf Coast. Thus, you get a beast of the southern wilds and a hush puppy. Yeah, I did see that movie. I shouldn't have watched it when I did because it had me in tears. I don't even know if I really remember what happened because I spent most of the movie bawling my eyes out. But there was a flood and it separated her from her father. And I think spoiler alert. Never mind, I won't say anything. Watch the film. For those of you who are catching this movie this live later, watch the film. So let me just go ahead and put in the chat the StreamYard link for anyone who wants to join and share. The floor is always open, definitely open to those of you who want to share anything about sand and its properties, and also the allegory of being that kind of high grade sand, or how we move to those elevated places and not resting in homes that are built on sand, because it goes deeper. Okay, so the link is in the chat. There we go. So feel free to join, especially if Clubhouse is acting up. We'll see how it moves with the replay. Okay, I think that was was that everything? That was a lot of what I wanted to talk about, was just the sand. And so the affirmation would definitely be move to those high places. Our homes are representations of our cultivated minds, and also knowing who built our homes, moving toward a space where you know who builds your home, and dwellings being built by your Aelites, and specifically for those of us in Anu, being built by the hands of our brothers and sisters. So, I think I got all the comments, which is great. I never usually keep up. I'm always ignoring the comments. All right, this is good. All right, so unless there's anything else that anybody wants to share, and give thanks for all of your shares on sand. A lot of it was very helpful. and stuff that I didn't know. And willfully, you learned something today, and also it helped with the how you move forward in the strong, right? As we move forward, are we doing things in our daily life that will move us from a place of sinking sand to solid rock? That's how we should definitely move for the strong and every day. I know I have to say that to myself frequently. Okay, I think that's it. Alrighty then. So unless there's anything else, we are going to end our live, and that's all she wrote. Give thanks for those of you who engaged in the chat. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We do have a retreat in June coming up. This goes for non-members and members alike. The registration page, I know we usually have registration internally, but this time the full and complete registration will be on the webpage. So everyone is encouraged, members as well, to go fill that out. As that's what we're going to be tallying to see who's coming to the retreat. Non-members are definitely invited and encouraged to sign up and go to the retreat. Which will be in June in New Orleans. So if you have any questions, there is a frequently asked questions section on the website, and also a number that you can call for more questions. Go to www.anulifeglobal.com/join to find out more information for the retreat, or you can go right to the home page, click on the image of the retreat, and it'll take you right to the registration form. So peace, everyone. Give thanks and enjoy the rest of your Yom Rishon. Bye.